to the 19th when you're writing to just recap and address specific questions you might have, because you would have, as students would have already started with your preparation, or in some cases would have finished with your preparation for the exam, and there are just one or two things that you want clarity on. So I've broken it up into four groups of slides. I've grouped chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 together. It doesn't mean that we're going to necessarily do that in a particular 40-minute period. It might be 2 or 3 periods, but I've broken the 15 chapters that we have to cover, that I want to cover, and that we need to cover in revision before your exam, into 4 groups: chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4, chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8, chapters 9 to 12, chapters 13, 14, and 15. And we'll do them in blocks like that, and see how we progress. Some will take a bit quicker than others. As I said earlier this morning, chapter 3, for instance, is a lengthy chapter because it deals with verbal, non-verbal, as well as written communication. The golden thread through this chapter, however, is that we have to be good listeners if we want to communicate effectively. It's not just a question of articulating ourselves when we communicate. It's not just how well we express ourselves, the grammar we use. It's also about the quiet periods, when we listen to the response from the customer. If you are talking the whole time, it's a monologue. If there is a reply from the customer, then we've got a dialogue, and that's communication. Right. So listening skills is extremely important. What we have, my apologies, what we have learned from the times that we live in is that we have to, there's so much information available, and the information available nowadays is instantly available. It happened 5 minutes ago, then it's already available on almost all the social media platforms. Regardless if it's in the middle of the night or the other part of the world, it's out there. And that is, I think, one of the challenges that salespeople are confronted with, because part of your job to be able to correctly satisfy or effectively satisfy the needs of a customer, you need to provide them with enough and the correct information that will help them to make a decision, that will maybe assist in persuading them to make the decision to buy with you and not with somebody else or with a different company. That's where the great challenge lies. The communication process itself, I think that particular diagram is familiar to you. I think I said previously, I will not give you an illustration like this and say, here are 8 different statements. Please put them in the right block. No, I just want you to, and that's why we've done the illustration, to understand that you have a left and a right side, regardless what is whom, but there's always a sender side and there's a receiver side. The sender side is you, the salesperson. The receiver is the customer. What happens in between, there has to be an encoding of a message. That's basically how you structure your statement to the receiver. The receiver has to decode that. That's how they receive it and then interpret it, because that's going to impact on the reaction that they will give you to the statement that you have made. There are some what we call noise or other forms of distraction. It could be verbal noises or audio noises. It could be your background. It could be that you're outside in the wind in Cape Town. The wind is howling 50 kilometers an hour outside this morning. So it will be difficult to keep a conversation, because the noise in the background is going to impact on how the message is received. But we're also talking of other distractions, maybe other people talking, all kinds of background noises, and even maybe a friend who are with you. who wants to contribute. It's or any distraction, any movement, anything that happens, visual or verbal, can impact on how the message is decoded by the receiver, by the customer, which definitely impacts directly on the reaction that they will provide. Okay, if you have been distracted because there was some background noise, something happened. Let's say, for instance, you're in a restaurant, the waitress, in this case, the salesperson, then, or fulfilling the role of a salesperson, is asking you a question about what you want to order. While you were listening to what she was saying, somebody dropped a tray in the background. That noise sort of distracted you. Maybe you glanced in that direction to see if anything serious happened, and therefore you did not receive all the information that the waitress gave you, and your response might not be what she anticipated. And you would then, if you communicate correctly, would say, you know what, sorry, I was distracted with that noise. Would you mind repeating what you just said? That's just the correct way of doing it. And also, when we get to chapters later on where we deal with objections, sometimes because of distractions, could be that the customer is processing information in his head and therefore is not paying as much attention to what you're actually saying at that point. If they're really interested, and this is usually a very good indication that they are keen to enter into a transaction, is when they say, please repeat that. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't listen, or I was thinking of something else. That is the genuine customer is genuinely interested, and that's the one that you actually want to work with. Right, but that's the communication process. Let's look at verbal communication. Verbal communication could be what you say, words that you use, questions that you ask, different pitch and tone of your voice. That's all part of verbal communication, but listening is as well. Just that quiet listening, using the two tools next to your head instead of just the one in the front of your face, which is your mouth. You've got 2 ears, 1 mouth. You've got to listen twice as much as you speak. Then you will be effective in most forms of communication. Right. Nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication refers to any eye movements, body gestures, body language, your handshake, your keeping your spatial distance, how you are dressed, your appearance, everything that contribute to what you are saying to create an image, positive image, preferably in the mind of the consumer. This person is here. This person is actually listening to me. This person cares about me. That's why they're asking the right questions. They don't appear in a rush. It's not that they want to quickly make a sale, so they actually tentatively are listening to what I'm saying, what I'm asking for. They're patient with me. Those are all non-verbal actions or cues that can contribute or is part of any form of communication. We have written communication. In that third part of the slides that we did in class earlier on in the semester, it specifically referred to any form of communication, emails, texts, the postcards, which actually is again addressed. So you don't have to fill in, you just fill in your details, and the sender's address is already on there. Darwin, you joined and then you lost signal. Was it, I know the winds are howling outside. How's your reception at the moment? Unstable? Are you all good for the moment?
Yes, so it's kind of unstable. The wind is crazy this side of storm. So
I was telling Teresa now, yeah, the wind is. I usually early in the morning, just before I drop my kids off at school, I open the windows all around the house so fresh air can go through the house. So when I come back, I usually, I'll keep it open for a while, just to circulate fresh air. This morning, I tell you what, when I attempted to open it, it actually blew close in my face again. No, the wind's serious out there. It does, however, I think probably mean that we are not going to have as much rain as they maybe have forecasted, because with the wind strong like this, then it blows the rain away to the Southern Cape, and from Hermanus onwards on the south coast, George and Plet, those people can probably expect rain, and they probably need rain more than we do at the moment. But anyway, written communication, yes, you need to. And that's something I spoke to my son in grade 11 as well, and we were talking yesterday about, is the curriculum that is offered at school currently still relevant to the careers that's being offered? Because it appears as if our curriculum at school sort of is, I won't say outdated, but there are things that they repeat from grade 7 every year. So it's almost as if there's no update. And I don't know. And I think there's obviously a good case for that, because the world has changed in the last 15, 16 years. My son was saying yesterday, if I was the same age I'm now, he's 17 now, he turned 17 in December. If I'm the same age now, then, but it was 16 years ago. I mean, that's just after Facebook and these things came out. Do you imagine what we would have done? How would we have coped with COVID? Yes, it's a good question. And that's probably why COVID happened now in 2020 and not in 2003. So it has become very important that all three of the forms of communication that we find in chapter 3, not one isolated, but all in combination, is what makes you communicate effectively. What you say verbally, your pitch of your voice, your handshake, how you dress, how you present yourself, how you follow up, the text that you send, the emails that you send, everything in combination, the whole package is what contributes to effective communication. Tarquin, for joining late after your signal was blown away. What I said to Theresa is, in the break between the sessions, I decided what I'll do is I'll summarize all 15 the chapters in 4 sections. Chapters, and you'll see the slides that currently, that's the one I'm going to upload, what you see on the screen now, this afternoon. That would be revision for exam chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. The next one would be 5, 6, 7, and 8. The third one would be 9, 10, 11, and 12. And the final one would be 13, 14, and 15. So I've chunked them into 4 groups. So it's basically 4 PDFs that you have to access or that you can use, because I'm going to my apologies, I'm going to take a sip of water before anything else. There we go. Thank you very much. My apologies for that interruption. But I can remember now that I'm doing this, now that I just drank some water. When I was still growing up and going to church on Sunday, I thought at some stage it was all part of the whole sermon. When the priest, when a minister on the pulpit were actually busy with the congregation, and he, I thought every time he was not coughing throughout the entire conversation, and it's almost as if he goes for his glass of water and takes that sort of break because he's gathering his thoughts, or I thought he forgot what he wanted to say, so now he's buying time. Now, I wasn't buying time. I seriously have a very irritating cough at the moment. Okay, so I just needed that sip of water. But it allows us to, again, just gather everything together, what we have set up to this point, and that leads us to what is referred to as barriers of communication. What prevents us from, or what can prevent us from communicating effectively? Well, things that put your customer, or remember, sometimes you're not dealing just with existing customers. You're also going to be dealing with new customers. They don't know you. You are still building a relationship with them. So to keep the professional or to remain professional, you're not going to start by using first names. Hi, John, how are you doing? You know what? I can still, up to this point, where are we now? Week 11, end of October. Some students in their third year, and I'm in my third year with Stadio as well. They now only start calling me on my first name because they feel comfortable to do. Most still call me sir. I'm not very comfortable with that because it makes me feel older than I am, but I can understand. That's just a reflection of how you were taught, and the mutual respect there is. Unfortunately, I don't have anything else but calling you on your names. Okay, I don't know your nickname, so I'm not going to go there anyway. So people, when you do communicate with the customer, don't be over familiar and start using first names. Be very, very cautious of specific issues related to the culture of that individual. And if you've done your preparation before you engage into any conversation, be it telephonic or in person with the customer, you'll make sure that you have an idea of what culture they are representing, and if there are any specific issues related to that culture that you need to be aware of. Politics, religion, remain away. Don't. Part of being familiar or being over familiar with the customer is not just distasteful jokes, any jokes. I mean, you don't joke about things. You joke when you are friends. Okay, and a distance is business. Speak clearly. Cell phones, people. Don't, no. Cell phone is off, not even vibrating. But if it's vibrating, you are going to put your hand in your pocket and you're going to look at the screen anyway. Doesn't look, no. This is not, it's very unprofessional. How you dress must be appropriate for the situation, okay? You're not going to meet somebody for a game of squash and then rock up in your Sunday suit. Okay, it's got to be appropriate for the occasion, and that goes with that also includes your jewelry that you use. For instance, if you have a pierced tongue or piercing in your tongue, it's probably a good idea to remove it when you know that you're going to do a presentation and talk, because it is going to impede on your speech. Small little things, and it all comes back to what we said in the first session this morning. There's a reason why we do these things with our customers. There's a reason why we offer good service to our customers. There's a reason why we pay attention to these barriers of communication. And the main reason is because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. It's the professional way of acting as a salesperson. You want that person to take you serious. You want that person to actually respect you and think that you're a knowledgeable individual who they want to buy from, but you act differently. It has to be the full package. Right. What next? What next is chapter 4. So we will complete the whole first set. I skipped chapter 1 because it was basically around 10 steps in the selling cycle. We did chapter 2 in the first session this morning, when we looked at the specific factors, especially that can impact on how people behave and what motivates them to take certain decisions, and what you as a salesperson need to be cautious of. And now we've also addressed on how you need to communicate, or how you can and should communicate with your customers in my apologies, in a professional manner by combining your verbal, non-verbal, and written skills to communicate effectively. Looking at chapter 4, which I just want to, what's our time? We start at 10:20, so we're going all the way to 11 o'clock. Am I right? Yep. No, we have more than enough time to complete chapter 4 as well. Chapter 4 deals with specifically the reasons why we need to have knowledge, not just about the products that we are selling, but about our competitors, about what our business culture and philosophies are. We need to be knowledgeable. We need to have a generally good general knowledge. As it states, some of the qualities of a salesperson would be to, apart from being in good health, appearing very professionally, having the right personality and attitude specifically. It's also important to show integrity, in other words, being honest and doing exactly what you say you will do. And then the third from the bottom, knowledge of the product. Knowledge of the product is very important, but there is a process that we go through, the sales knowledge process, which you'll find on the screen now. The sales knowledge process basically consists of 7 stages, where firstly, you're going to determine what knowledge is necessary. Remember, we started off the session with communication earlier in this period by saying that we live in an information in an era where information overload is the rule. It happens every day that consumers receive way more information that they can actually effectively process. So for you to really break through and get the attention of the potential customer, it's very, very sensible to summarize the important information and only convey that to the customer. So the customer is not, again, overwhelmed with a lot of information, important information, but too much unnecessary, trivial, secondary information that might. Don't start with that. Prepare for it, but make sure that your secondary information is the ones that you almost sort of leave to attend to when there is a question or an objection from the customer. That's when you add on to what you've already said. Okay, make sure that you know what knowledge you have available. Okay, you must know everything about the product. You must that you're selling, everything about the customer, everything about competitors. If there's a difference between the two, you have a problem. If the information available is less than the information that's necessary, you have a problem. Because then the customer is going to obviously have a lot of questions. If you have more information available that is necessary, you're good. But then the challenge lies in identifying the essential information that you share. Right. You have to also develop a sales knowledge, share knowledge, and use it. There's no point in obtaining the information and think, oh, this is interesting, and then 5 minutes later you forget it and you never use it in your presentation or in your conversation. If it's relevant, make sure that you bring it into the conversation. Use it. And you will obviously always keep on and continuously evaluate if the information gap is narrowing or if it's widening. That's why the last step, evaluation of sales knowledge, comes in. You are going to evaluate if that gap in step number 3 is becoming bigger, because there are more questions and more questions coming up all the time, and you realize, oh, geez, I'm not really prepared for this one. I need to do a lot more research before I phone my next customer. Okay, we'll just basically see this as a learning process and learn from what experience we've just had or bad experience we've just had. Where does information come from? We've got a lot of formal and informal sources. Our formal sources is the ones that we'll start with because that's authentic, that is available to us if the records that your company keep is updated correctly and regularly. Informal Feedback from other satisfied customers, maybe publications in newspapers, magazines, all that kind of information. Remember that customers, you have to assume that customers read the paper and not just and watch the news and not just surf on social media all day long, but that they use other resources as well. And there I can say that my two sons are exactly the opposite. The one is not that interested in a lot of information. He would look at me if I have spoken, and he would say, "Okay, right. So what's the essential part? But why? What's this about?" He wants that. The other one wants to investigate himself. You can use exactly the same approach. He's going to say, "Okay, that sounds interesting," and then he's not going to respond. He's going to come back maybe 10 minutes later after he's done his searches, because he's got obviously certain sources that he relies on to verify if it's actually factual or not. And then he'll come back to me prepared and with lots of questions. So that's just two different ways in which information is sourced to ensure that your sales knowledge is as much as possible, or that the information that you have available. You need to be you're a source of information, people. Salespeople, they need to know a lot about everything and not just the products that they sell. Okay, knowledge of people and also what happens around the world. You've got to know your organization first, because that is going to protect you from making mistakes and promising people things that you cannot deliver. It's also going to help to grow that relationship with your customer. And it allows you to know the boundaries within which you can operate and offer special packages and discounts and and what after sales service you know that your company will be offering, so you do not overpromise. And that's the main reason why knowledge of what your organization stands for and what your organization offer and what the correct procedure is and the policies that they follow, it is to ensure that you do the right thing, but that you also don't overpromise. You can rather underpromise and then overdeliver. Other way around, you've lost that deal. Right. Next is knowledge of the customer. Obviously, when it is, and we deal with that in chapter 14, I think, when we're doing sales, personal selling in the business market. We'll deal with that in more detail. But when you are selling to the business market, B2B, more information than just that you would normally have on an individual customer is required. Here, specifically, addresses, telephone numbers, type of business that you're dealing with, how long they've been in business, what their policies and procedures are, what their previous or what their history, their buying history is. That's a lot more information necessary. Knowing your product. We started earlier this morning and we said FAB, features, advantages, benefits. And again, we emphasize the importance, or I cannot overemphasize the importance of knowing these three elements. And if you don't know, because you will not be an expert in everything, make sure that you have a good network of people that you can call on, people that will help you, people that can back you, people you know are reliable sources that can back what you are saying to the customer. There's nothing more. There's nothing that impresses a customer more than anybody else that you just randomly call that confirms what you've just said. Share case histories of previous successful transactions, people who are satisfied. I walked into a business the other day, and usually when you walk into a business, they have, or not usually, but some businesses are quite um, are quite tense about this. They have photograph of the manager there, or the employee of the month, or even when I, my previous college, I decided 1 year for our reception area, our 5 main staff members who's been there the longest and who has, I think, who probably have the greatest impact on our students. We had the photographs taken, but with a bit of a twist. I did not take a photograph, just a headshot of the staff member and put it on the wall and say, this is Marlon, this is Bernadine, this is so, this is so, this is so. I took a photograph, or I had a photographer, professional photographer, take a photograph of one of their eyes. So you're getting a 30 by 30 print, black and white print of the eye of the lecturer. And I promise you, after 1 week, it was possible for the students to identify who was who. And the reason why I did that was to ensure that there's sufficient eye contact the whole time. They looked at the eyes and they said, who's this? I said, well, you can tell me in a week's time who this is. It's one of the people that you will be dealing with on a daily basis. In fact, it's those 5 people you will be dealing with on a daily basis, with all 5 of those people. And they were all correct after a week. And then obviously it was I think important to the students, because they could now relate better, and there's a story to it. And if there's a story to anything, and that's also what I wanted to say when I picked up at this company that I walked in to a couple of weeks ago. They had a photo wall as well, but it was all photographs of happy, satisfied customers. You know what kind of impression that leaves with a new customer? It's just a happy, smiling bunch of satisfied customers. And immediately you think, okay, right, this is where I want to be. I want to be one. I want to get on that wall. I want to be a happy, satisfied customer as well. And it has the same motivational impact on your staff as well, because they know the impact that has on creating the right vibe when a customer walks in for the first time. I thought it was a nice twist, and I think it can actually be very successful it was in that business anyway. Right. People, there's a couple of pages left in this chapter. I'm not going to engage in too much more now. It's definitely not enough for us to finish. I don't want to rush it. We have the whole of next week. It is Friday. I don't want to put you under unnecessary pressure. So I'm going to close the session here where we are now and say, you know what? You've done well. Thank you very much for this week. You've got more periods in the rest of the day, or you're finishing when you're finishing today?
So got 2 left, so 3, I think.
Oh my word! But the next 2, and then you're done. Not sort of a break in between, and then you finish an 8th period.
And we're still writing.
Oh, good. But thanks for you anyway. Thanks for completing the class test as well. Theresa, Tarquin, thanks. I know that it's been a long week, it's been a long year, it's been a long semester. Hang in there, we're almost there. Remember to also find a bit of balance on the weekend. I'm going to try my best as well. The Proteas are playing against Australia tomorrow in the T20 World Cup. It's the first game. I've got no hope, but I will still always support them. And I think if you go in with not too much expectations, then sometimes you are very much surprised. And then, of course, on Sunday, Man United, Liverpool. So maybe we have a lot to talk about next Wednesday when we speak to each other again. In the meantime, stay safe, keep well, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Take care of yourselves. Always a pleasure, Teresa.